In our last conversation, we spoke of the leaks in your consciousness, the subtle holes in the ship of your mind that allow your prosperity to drain away. We learned to plug those leaks, but a ship that doesn't sink is not the same as a ship that reaches a golden shore. A life free of active failure is not the same as a life filled with magnificent success. Today, we move beyond mere repair. We begin the work of a master builder. Consider two men, both given a pile of the finest marble, granite, and wood. The first man, eager but ignorant, begins to stack the materials haphazardly. He works tirelessly, sweating under the sun, driven by a brute desire to build something. The result is a crude, unstable shack, vulnerable to the first storm. The second man does not touch a single stone. At first, he retreats to his study and unrolls a blueprint. He spends his time understanding the laws of physics, the principles of structure, the mathematics of form. He is not working on the building, he is working on his understanding. Only when the blueprint is perfectly clear in his mind does he begin to build. His work is calm, precise, and effortless. The result is a magnificent palace, a testament to enduring principles. Most people live their financial lives like the first man. They chase money, work hard, and follow tips, stacking a shack of wealth that is perpetually at risk. We are here to be the second man. We are here to study the blueprint. This blueprint consists of 4 great mental laws. These are not my laws, nor any man's. They are the fundamental mechanics of creation, the very source code of reality. To know them is to become the architect of your own fortune. To ignore them is to remain a laborer, forever stacking stones in vain. Let us begin. Let us unroll the blueprint and study the first and most important of these laws. The first law is the foundation upon which all else is built. It is the law of substance. It states this: everything you see, touch, taste, or experience in this world, from the gold in a vault to the water in a river, from the body you inhabit to the dollar in your pocket, is merely a different expression of one single underlying intelligent substance. The ancient philosophers called it prima materia. And the physicists of today brush against it with their theories of quantum fields. And Charles Fillmore and the great spiritual masters called it the divine substance, or the mind of God. This substance is formless, but it contains the potential for all forms. It is like a universal clay, infinitely malleable, infinitely available. It is always present everywhere in its entirety. Cannot be created or destroyed. This means that lack in reality does not exist. Scarcity is an illusion. Your bank account may be empty, but you are, at this very moment, swimming in an infinite ocean of the very substance from which all wealth is formed. To believe in lack is the same as a man dying of thirst while floating in a freshwater lake. The resource is there. It is his perception that is flawed. He believes he is in a desert, and so his senses conform to that belief. The law of substance dictates that this universal clay is utterly impartial. It has no preference for rich or poor. It simply awaits a mold. It awaits a command. And the tool that shapes this substance, the mold that gives it form, is your own consciousness. Your dominant thoughts, beliefs, and feelings are the blueprint that this infinite substance uses to construct the building of your life. Therefore, the first step to wealth is not to get more things, but to become profoundly, unshakably aware of your constant connection to the one substance from which all things are made. To know intellectually that you are surrounded by an infinite substance is one thing. So to live from this truth is another entirely. This is where philosophy must become daily practice. How do you apply the law of substance when your bills are due and your bank account screams lack? To say, this is the great test. This is where the architect proves his mastery. The practical application is a discipline of perception and acknowledgement. It is the conscious act of withdrawing your mental energy from the illusion of lack and reinvesting it in the truth of abundance. First, the discipline of acknowledgement. You must train yourself to see the divine substance everywhere. This is not a platitude. It is a mental exercise like lifting weights. Say when you drink a glass of water, pause for a second and think, wait, this is the divine substance in its form of refreshment and life. When you see the sun shining, think this is the divine substance in its form of infinite energy and light. When an idea sparks in your mind, think, this is the divine substance in its form of intelligence and creativity. Even when you look at the dollar in your pocket, do not see it as just $1. See it as a symbol, a physical manifestation of this ever-present unlimited substance. Acknowledge it by saying, I behold in you the infinite substance of all wealth. By doing this, you are retraining your subconscious mind. You are teaching it to stop seeing a world of separate, limited things and to start recognizing the one unlimited source behind all things. You're tuning your mind like a radio away from the static of scarcity and onto the clear frequency of abundance. Second, the discipline of non-resistance. When a thought of lack, fear, or worry appears, and it will, you must not fight it. To fight a thought is to give it your energy. It is like wrestling with a shadow. You only exhaust yourself. Instead, you practice non-resistance. You observe the thought, acknowledge it without emotion, and let it pass. You might say to it, I see you, thought of lack. You are an echo of an old belief. You have no power here. Then you immediately and deliberately pivot your focus back to the truth of substance. I knew a man, a shopkeeper, whose business was failing. Every time he looked at his empty store, a wave of panic would hit him. He began this practice. When the panic came, he would stop, take a breath, and say, that is the appearance, but the reality is substance. He would then look at the shelves, not as empty, but as full of the potential for abundance. He would look at the single customer in his store not as just one person, but as the divine substance appearing as my perfect client. His energy changed. His panic was replaced by a quiet confidence. Customers who are unconsciously drawn to positive and stable energy began to enter his store more frequently. He did not change his inventory or his prices at first. He changed his perception of reality, and reality had no choice but to conform to his new blueprint. This is the work. It is a moment-by-moment choice to starve the illusion of lack and feed the truth of abundance. If the divine substance is the universal clay, then the law of imagination is the law that governs the workshop where that clay is molded. Your imagination is not, as many believe, a frivolous faculty for idle daydreaming. It is the most powerful, creative, and godlike ability you possess. It is the spiritual workshop of the mind. It is where the formless takes on form. The law of imagination states that the divine substance is compelled to fill the molds that you create and hold within your imagination. Whatever you consistently and vividly imagine, infused with the feeling of its reality, becomes the blueprint that substance must by its very nature manifest in your world. This is why worry is so destructive, and worry is the misuse of imagination. It is the act of meticulously building a detailed blueprint of what you don't want and then pouring all your emotional energy into it. It is in essence praying for failure. And the universe, being an impartial servant, dutifully delivers the result of your focused, emotionalized imagination. Conversely, constructive imagination is the art and science of building the blueprint of what you do want. But here is a secret that few understand. The purpose of using your imagination is not to see the future or to figure out the how. The how is the universe's domain, not yours. The purpose of imagination is to generate the feeling of the wish fulfilled now. You do not imagine having $1 million to simply see the number in a bank account. You imagine it to generate the feeling of security, freedom, and relief that you believe $1 million would bring you. That feeling is the true magnetic force. That feeling is the signal you send to the divine substance. The feeling is the prayer that is always answered. Therefore, your work as an architect is to enter the workshop of your mind and build a clear, vivid, and emotionally charged blueprint of your desired reality, not as something that will happen, but as something that is already true. Let us now step fully into the workshop of the mind. Knowing the law of imagination is not enough. We must become master craftsmen within it. The practical application of this law is a discipline I call scripting the scene of fulfillment. Now, this is far more than positive thinking. It is a precise surgical technique for creating a new reality. It consists of two key elements: a specific scene and a dominant feeling. First, you must craft a specific scene. Your subconscious mind does not respond to vague desires like I want to be wealthy. It responds to concrete sensory experiences, and you must therefore create a short, specific scene, a single event that would imply that your larger desire has already been fulfilled. And do not imagine the moment you receive a check for $1 million. That is a common mistake. It focuses on the getting, which can create anxiety. Instead, imagine a scene that takes place after the fact. For example, imagine a quiet conversation with your spouse. You are looking at your online banking portal, not with shock, but with a calm sense of satisfaction. You turn to them and say, we did it. We are finally free. Feel the shared relief and joy. Imagine yourself on a telephone call with a trusted financial advisor. You are not asking for help. You are discussing how to best manage your significant portfolio. The advisor says your position is incredibly strong. Feel the sense of accomplishment and security that comes with those words. The scene must be short, natural, and imply the fulfillment of your desire. Second, and most importantly, you must generate the dominant feeling. Once you have your scene, you enter the silence, a state of relaxed, meditative quiet. You close your eyes and you play this short scene over and over in your imagination. Your goal is not just to see the images, but to evoke the corresponding feeling. What would it feel like if this were true right now? Would it be relief, freedom, security, joy, a quiet confidence? But you must capture that feeling. That feeling is the fire that forges the mold. You must loop the scene until this new feeling becomes your dominant inner state, more real and more present than your current worries. You must fall asleep while marinating in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I knew a young woman who dreamed of starting her own design firm, but she was trapped in a job she despised. Her scene was simple. She imagined herself standing in her own beautifully designed office holding a heavy, elegant business card that read her name, founder and CEO. She didn't see clients or money. She just felt the cool, textured paper of the card in her hand and the overwhelming feeling of pride and identity that came with it. She lived in that feeling every night. Within months, a series of coincidences led to her meeting the right partner, securing her first major client, and finding the perfect office space. And she did not chase these things. She created the mental mold, and the divine substance, by its very nature, rushed in to fill it. This is the science of feeling it real. It is the practical work of the architect. We have now established that we are surrounded by an infinite substance and that our imagination gives it form. This can lead a man to and you just thought, I know I can have everything for myself. And this is the path to greed, and it is a misunderstanding of the nature of prosperity. The universe is not a static vault to be plundered. It is a living, breathing, dynamic river. And the health of a river is determined by its flow. This brings us to the third great law, the law of circulation. This law states that prosperity, like the blood in your veins, must constantly circulate. It must flow out in order to flow back in, renewed and multiplied. To attempt to hoard wealth is to build a dam in the river of prosperity. The water behind the dam becomes stagnant, lifeless, and eventually dries up. The man who lives in a consciousness of lack is terrified to give. He clutches his money, his time, his ideas, fearing that he will not have enough. In doing so, he is sending a powerful message to the universe. I believe in scarcity. I do not trust the source. And the universe, honoring his belief, shuts off the flow. The man who understands the law of circulation knows that his giving is the very act that opens the channels for his receiving. He is not losing anything. He is making a spiritual investment. He is casting his bread upon the waters, confident in the law that it will return to him manifold. This giving takes many forms: tithing your talent, freely sharing your knowledge and skills without an immediate expectation of return; tithing your ideas, contributing your best ideas in meetings and conversations, not hoarding them for personal gain; tithing your appreciation, generously giving praise, encouragement, and recognition to others; and yes, tithing your money, giving a portion of your income to the people, places, or institutions that provide you with spiritual nourishment and inspiration. This is not charity done out of a sense of duty. It is a joyous and confident act done with the profound understanding that you are not the source of your wealth, but a channel for the divine substance. Your function is to keep the channel open and clear. When you give freely and joyfully, you are declaring with your actions, I have faith in the infinite source. There is always more where this came from. This declaration of faith is the most powerful magnet for prosperity that exists. Therefore, the architect of wealth does not build a fortress to hoard his treasures. He builds a beautiful, wide, and open channel, ensuring that the river of divine substance can flow through him, enriching both himself and the world. We have laid a magnificent foundation. We have the formless substance, the creative imagination, and the dynamic circulation. But a blueprint, no matter how perfect, does not build a palace on its own. A force is required to translate the inner vision into outer reality. This force is governed by the fourth and final law, the law of irresistible will. Now, you must be very careful here. The word will is often misunderstood. Most people think of it as willpower and a brute, ego-driven force that pushes against resistance and stuff. This is the will of the first man in our story, the one who built the shack. He forces, he struggles, he strains. This is not the will we are speaking of. The irresistible will is not about forcing an outcome. It is about allowing the will of the divine to flow through you as inspired action. When you have aligned your mind with the truth of substance, created a clear mold in your imagination, and opened the channels through circulation, you become a magnet. You do not need to chase opportunities. They are drawn to you. You do not need to force doors open. They unlock as you approach. And the law of irresistible will states that when your personal desire is in harmony with the divine will for greater expression in life, Your actions become effortless and irresistibly effective. You stop swimming against the current and you are carried by it. How do you know if you are acting from willpower or from the irresistible will? Willpower feels like a struggle. It is tense, anxious, and draining. It is obsessed with making it happen. Irresistible will feels like flow. It is calm, confident, and energizing. It comes as a sudden hunch, a clear intuition, an idea that feels right and exciting, and it is not about making it happen, but a joyous participation in it happening through you. I knew a writer who struggled for years with willpower. He forced himself to write 1,000 words a day, hating every moment. You know, his work was lifeless, and no publisher was interested. He was miserable. Then he learned to apply these laws. He spent his time first feeling his connection to the infinite substance of creativity. He used his imagination not to see his book published, but to feel the joy and satisfaction of a reader being transformed by his words. He began sharing his ideas freely with other writers, circulation. One morning he woke up with an idea for a story so clear and so exciting that he felt he couldn't not write it. He wasn't forcing himself to write, he was being pulled to write. The words flowed effortlessly. The book he wrote in this state of flow became a bestseller. He was no longer pushing against the world, he was acting as a channel for the irresistible will. Therefore, your work is not to plan every single step of your journey. Your work is to prepare your consciousness. When your consciousness is right, you will be guided to take the right action at the right time. This is not passivity, it is the highest form of intelligent activity. And so, the blueprint is before you. The four great mental laws of prosperity and the law of substance. The truth that you are surrounded by an infinite intelligent clay ready to be molded. The law of imagination, the understanding that your mind is the workshop where the molds are created through feeling. The law of circulation, the principle that wealth must flow through you, not just to you. The law of irresistible will, the secret of acting with inspired, effortless power, not brute force. To know these laws is to hold the keys to the kingdom. For too long, you may have lived as a tenant in a reality constructed by others, a reality of limitation, scarcity, and fear, built upon the flimsy blueprint of the world's beliefs. You have paid rent in the form of anxiety, struggle, and unfulfilled dreams. That ends today. You are not a tenant, you are an architect, and you are a master builder. Your birthright is not a shack, but a palace. Your great work from this day forward is to begin construction on your own mental palace, a palace built on the unshakable foundation of substance, a palace designed with the glorious blueprints of your imagination, a palace with its gates wide open, allowing the river of circulation to flow freely, and a palace where every action taken is guided by the quiet, confident whisper of the irresistible will. Do not be intimidated by the grandeur of the vision. Every palace begins with a single well-placed stone. Your first stone is the decision made now to accept these laws as the operating reality of your life. Begin the work, study the blueprint, and build. I am Charles Fillmore, and this is the Fillmore Key.